overview of Evoto for newborn photographers. So this first panel over here with this paint palette is where you're going to do all your color work. The face is where you're going to do all your blemishes and body work. And then background adjustments are here, and any kind of clothing like wrinkle, that sort of thing is going to be there. You can crop and rotate, and then you can also work tethered if you wanted to do that. So we are going to first start with the full image. I'm going to set my white balance and my exposure. In this case, this background is a little bit yellow, but not quite as yellow as it is here. So I'm going to start by just using my eyedropper tool to neutralize that background and see if I can get a good result from that. Just a little bit too yellow for me. That's looking a little bit better. I don't love the shadows over here, but we can kind of work on that. So I'm just going to up my magenta just slightly and then kind of reduce that yellow. So if you hold the space bar down, you will see your before and after. So see how that sting of yellow has left our background, which is great. Okay, and then I'm just gonna look up here at my histogram and see that I'm missing a little bit of data up in my higher tones. So I'm just gonna go to basic here, and under exposure, I'm gonna just bring up the exposure just a little bit, just like a quarter stop or so. And then I'm going to also go to my shadows and just bring up the shadows slightly, depending on how you like to edit. I don't like my shadows to be too dark. So somewhere in there is pretty good for me. And then I'm also going to come to my brightness and just drop it down just slightly, drop my, not my brightness, my highlights is what I want to drop down. And then I want to drop down my whites. So there we go, before and after. I'm also going to come down here to clarity and just reduce it a little bit. I like it to be just a little bit softened by that clarity. The last thing is I want to go to my HSLs here, and I'm just going to do a quick, I'm going to move my reds towards my yellows under hue. I'm going to go reds towards yellows and my oranges and yellows towards reds. I find that that just makes babies look a little bit more even across their skin tones. And then I can do additional work inside the actual masks. So now before I go to her skin, I'm gonna just come in here and switch this over. I was doing full image before. I'm gonna go to mask now, and then I'm gonna choose her face. And I'm just gonna move it towards the yellows, just a couple points, and towards the magentas, a couple points. I'm going to go to my HSL again, right here. I'm going to go to my reds, and I'm going to move them towards the yellows and my oranges and my yellows. Before and after. Finally, I'm going to do the same thing for her body skin, and I'm just going to move it so that this hand goes a little bit more yellow. And I'm going to go a little bit darker on it. It's just a little bit bright for me. And then reds towards yellows and yellows towards reds. Before and after. One other thing I do want to do to her face here, I'm just going to go back to that face. The lovely thing about Evoto is you can go back and forth over and over as many times as you need to. And I'm just going to come down here into the oranges and just pull some of that saturation out. That's much better. Did you see how that kind of went out right there in those shadow areas? So there we go. I'm liking that much better. She's looking pretty good. Let's go to her skin. Evoto has so many cool features in here. I find that with babies, blemish removal, unfortunately doesn't quite get rid of all the flakes, but it does a pretty good job. So if you bring this freckles and acne up all the way, you're gonna see she goes pretty gummy. Not my favorite to go that far with it. Acne can be those little dots. Do you see how if I bring acne down, those things come back? And then if I bring freckles down, it doesn't really do too much because she doesn't have freckles. So this slider is not really doing anything for us. So I just put it back down at 0. And then I adjust the acne to where I really want it. We can come in, give her just a little bit of texture back, somewhere like that, before and after. It's done a nice job of reducing these down, but still giving her some texture. So then we can also come down, if you wanted to remove any face shine, you could do that. I like to leave it. I don't think I want to take any of that out. I like that cute little highlight on her cheek there. Babies don't need double chins or anything like that. And then under skin retouching, you can do some burning and dodging, just to even some things out. There's before and there's after. I don't want it nearly that heavy, but somewhere in there is not too bad. And then you can also go to this textured smoothing, and it will leave that texture but kind of smooth out her skin. Funny, right? Textured smoothing. And give you like kind of that nice balance of textured. I also like, sometimes I'll bring this up and then go back up here and just reduce that just a little bit further so it's not quite so heavy on the acne. And then it goes a little bit heavier on the textured smoothing. So that's pretty good. Okay, and then I'm not going to do any skin softening because I want her to have a little bit of grit. I don't need to do anything to her body because you can't really see much except her hand in here. If you wanted to add more texture back under the skin texture, you can come up here and it will give it just a little bit of grit. It's kind of like a noise, but I find that it's just a little bit, see how this is happening here? If you really zoom in, if I take that away, that goes away. I don't really love, you know, if you can get it to the right level, it's okay to just do a couple points, but it's not my favorite. I don't think it does that good of a job, so I don't do that very heavy. If you wanted to, you can also adjust her skin balance here. I've already adjusted it how I like it, so I'm not going to adjust it any further there. If you wanted to go to eyes, you can add some catch lights, which is kind of nice. If you want them to, like, I don't mind that one. That one's okay. I don't love that one. So that one looks okay to me. I'm going to zoom out here. And then you also can adjust that. So right now they're both at 70%. If I wanted to just come down just a little bit, there's 32 is going to look a little bit more natural somewhere in there. And then you can also flip it if you need to, just to balance your light. But I kind of like it here. It's almost like it's giving it a fill light as well as my bright strobe. You can add makeup, which normally we wouldn't do for a baby, but sometimes adding a little bit of blush can be nice depending on the baby and depending on how much you're adding here. So that's an option to consider playing with. Just because we're not really putting makeup on a baby, it can just help do a little bit of contouring and give a little bit of life in those cheeks sometimes. And then you can reshape bodies down here. Hands are really more things that you would use like on, you know, hand veins for older people. And then she doesn't have any hair, so we don't need to worry about hair, but this works great for taking out stray hairs on adults. So there's lots of different options within here, and really quickly we can make those changes. And then you also can save this out as a preset. So if you know that, you know, most of your images are going to have about this level of retouching to the skin, you can save this preset. So I'm going to go save preset, and then I'm not going to save any of the color adjustments. Oh, I mean, you could save the person adjustments if you wanted to, and that would save all of your like hands, body, that sort of thing. If you knew that you always moved it to the reds and yellows. And then I'm not going to save either of those, but I am going to save my portrait retouching. So I could do something like that and then just save it as, you know, baby skin soft, whatever you want to save it. Save. And then you can add that to other images. So let's come here to this one and just try it. She's very jaundiced. I'm going to go over here to my presets. It's this triangle. And then I'm going to click baby skin soft. And before and after. And it did a pretty good job. It's got some things happening here where the body is going dark because of that change that I made to her hands in that first one. So that would be one of the reasons why it probably would be better to leave your adjustments for skin separate from any of your adjustments. We can go to this one here and then reduce that. There we go. So that would be why you would want to keep those separate and maybe not save those. Okay, and then same thing, like you can come back in and change things around with the color. You can go to her body skin, or we can go to our full image and just pull that out. We can use our little eyedropper here, kind of get us closer to ballpark. There's before, there's after. But you can do all kinds of stuff to really dial in your color here, and also very quickly make those skin changes, especially if you do pretty much the same skin changes over and over. You can just add a little preset for it.